The crystalline spires of Draconis Prime pierced through layers of ammonia clouds, their surfaces gleaming with the bioluminescent pulse of a civilization that had conquered faster-than-light travel before humanity had even discovered fire. Queen Aliana stood at the observation deck of her palace, her scaled hands, each finger tipped with retractable talons capable of cutting through starship hull plating, resting against the quantum glass viewport. Her serpentine eyes, pupils vertical slits that could perceive across 17 different wavelengths, watched the human delegation's ship descend through her world's toxic atmosphere. 300 cycles had passed since she'd last seen one of them. "Your radiance," her chief advisor Krell hissed in the harmonic frequency of their native tongue. "The human ambassador awaits in the grand hall. Shall I have them wait in the antechamber? It would be appropriate to make them understand their place." Aliana's tail, thick as a tree trunk and lined with bioelectric nodes, twitched with annoyance. "No, I will see them now." The Draconian Empire spanned 47 star systems, commanded fleets that could glass planets from orbit, and possessed technology that bent the fabric of spacetime itself. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, barely capable of crude warp drives, their ships held together with what Draconians mockingly called optimistic engineering. They had nothing the Empire needed. Except for one thing. The Grand Hall was a monument to Draconian supremacy. Pillars of compressed neutronium supported a ceiling that displayed real-time imagery of conquered worlds. Courtiers in flowing robes woven from smart matter stood in precise formations, their scales shimmering in colors that denoted rank and house affiliation. At the center, elevated on a dais that hummed with artificial gravity generators, sat Aliana's throne, carved from a single massive crystal of dilithium, pulsing with barely contained energy. The human entered, and the court fell silent. He was small, barely reaching the chest height of the shortest Draconian present, his skin that peculiar shade of brown that still fascinated xenobiologists, his hair dark and cropped short in the military fashion of Earth's unified space command. No scales, no natural weapons, no biological enhancements that evolution had granted to the superior species. He wore a simple uniform, dark blue with silver insignia, and carried nothing but a small case. But he walked without fear. "Your radiance," he said, his voice carrying through the hall with surprising clarity. "I am Lieutenant John Kestrel of the UESC Harmony. I bring greetings from Earth and her colonies, and a proposal for mutual cooperation." Aliana's inner eyelids flickered, a draconian expression of mild interest. His pronunciation of her language was acceptable, though his throat clearly struggled with the harmonic frequencies. Most humans required translation devices. "Speak human," she said, her voice resonating with the natural authority of one who had ruled for 2 centuries. "What could your fledgling species possibly offer the Draconian Empire?" John didn't flinch at the condescension. Instead, he smiled, that peculiar human expression that showed teeth, something Draconians only did before combat. "Trade routes through the Orion Spur, access to our quantum computing research and cultural exchange. We've read your initial survey reports. You find us curious. Curious as one might find an insect capable of simple mathematics," Krell interjected, his crest rising in what humans would recognize as contempt. "Perhaps," John agreed unfazed, "but even insects can surprise you." He gestured to his case. "May I?" Aliana nodded, and John opened it. Inside, nestled in shock-absorbent foam, lay an instrument unlike anything in the hall's extensive database of known musical devices. It was wooden, actual organic wood, a material Draconians had abandoned millennia ago as primitive, curved and hollow, with strings stretched across its body. "A guitar," John explained. "Acoustic. No power source, no quantum processors, no nanoconstruction, just wood, metal strings, and human hands." The court rippled with barely suppressed laughter. Music was universal, but draconian compositions required symphonies of synthesized sound, precisely calculated frequencies that could induce specific emotional responses through manipulation of neural pathways. The idea that such a crude device could produce anything meaningful was absurd. "You would perform for us?" Aliana asked, genuine curiosity breaking through her regal composure. "With this primitive artifact, if your radiance permits." She gestured assent, partially because she was intrigued, partially because the court would appreciate the entertainment of watching a human embarrass himself. John removed the guitar from its case with reverence that suggested religious significance. He sat on the edge of the dais steps, a breach of protocol that made several courtiers hiss in outrage, and cradled the instrument. His fingers found the strings, and he began to tune it by ear, making minute adjustments that his unenhanced human hearing somehow detected. Then he played. The first note shivered through the grand hall like a ghost. It was wrong. Wrong for draconian music theory, which held that all meaningful sound must be synthesized, calculated, optimized for neural impact. This was organic, imperfect, with harmonics that wavered and bent in ways no computer would allow. But it was beautiful. John's fingers moved across the strings with practiced grace, coaxing from them a melody that seemed to bypass the auditory cortex entirely and strike directly at something deeper. The rhythm was simple, almost childlike, but beneath it ran currents of complexity. The way his fingers damped certain strings while allowing others to ring, creating harmonies that mathematics alone could never predict. Aliana's three-chambered heart stuttered. She knew this song. 300 cycles ago, before she was queen, before the Draconian Empire had achieved its current dominance, she had been a young explorer on a survey mission to a backwater world the primitives called Earth. First contact protocols had forbidden direct interaction, but she had been young and curious, and the scans had shown one human living alone in a mountainous region, far from the major population centers. His name had been Jonathan. He had been different from the other humans they'd observed, older, with white in his hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of laughter and sorrow in equal measure. He lived in a small wooden structure, and every evening he would sit on his porch and play this exact instrument, producing this exact melody. She had watched him from her cloaked observation post for weeks, fascinated by this creature who seemed content with solitude, who created beauty for no purpose other than the joy of creation itself. Draconian art served the state, reinforced hierarchy, demonstrated power. But this human played for the mountains, for the wind, for himself. On the final night before her ship departed Earth's system, she had violated every protocol and decloaked near his home. He had looked up at her, this massive, scaled creature from nightmares, claws and fangs and bioelectric power, and he had smiled. "Beautiful night for stargazing," he had said in English, which her translator had rendered instantly. "You've been watching for a while, figured I should finally say hello." They had talked until dawn, about music, about loneliness, about the vast indifference of the universe and the small defiances of creating something beautiful within it. He had played for her that same melody and explained it was something he'd composed after his wife died. "It's called remembrance," he'd told her, "because love doesn't end just because someone's gone." She had left Earth understanding something that no draconian educational algorithm had ever taught her. That strength wasn't just in ships and weapons and empire. That there was power in vulnerability, in the courage to feel grief and transform it into something that could make even an alien queen weep. In the Grand Hall, Lieutenant John Kestrel played the final notes of Remembrance, and silence descended like a physical presence. Aliana realized her claws had extended unconsciously, scoring deep grooves in her throne's armrests. Her bioelectric nodes were firing erratically, and her scales had shifted to deep purple, the color of profound emotional disturbance that no draconian queen should ever display publicly. "Where?" she whispered, and her voice cracked in a way that made her courtiers freeze in shock. "Where did you learn that song?" John set the guitar down gently and met her gaze without fear. "From my grandfather, Jonathan Kestrel. He taught it to me when I was young, made me promise to play it whenever I traveled to new places," he said. John paused, and Aliana saw grief in his eyes, 300-year-old grief, passed down through generations. "He said that once, a long time ago, he played it for someone special, someone from far away. And that if I ever met anyone who recognized it, I should tell them that he never forgot them either." The grand hall erupted in confusion and whispered speculation, but Aliana heard none of it. She was calculating time frames, human lifespans, the impossibility and inevitability of this moment. "He spoke of me." The words came out smaller than any she'd uttered in 2 centuries of rule. "He called you his dragon lady," John said, and now he was smiling, but it was tinged with sadness. "Kept a journal, encrypted and hidden. I found it after he passed 10 years ago. He wrote about that night for the rest of his life. About the conversation, the music, the beauty of connection across impossible distances." John reached into his uniform and produced a crystal. "He wanted you to have this. Somehow, he knew I'd end up here, called it optimistic engineering of fate." Aliana descended from her throne, her movements liquid grace despite her size. She towered over John, could have killed him with a casual swipe, but instead she knelt, bringing her eyes level with his. "Your grandfather taught you to play every song he knew. Said music was humanity's real gift to the universe, not our technology or our weapons or our expansion, just the ability to take pain and joy and transform them into something that could bridge any distance, cross any divide. He was wise." Aliana's voice was soft, stripped of regal authority. "I thought of him often, in the quiet moments between campaigns and political maneuvering. I would remember that night and wonder if I had imagined it, if the connection I felt was real or just the loneliness of command manifesting as delusion." "It was real," John assured her. "Real enough that he spent 70 more years composing variations on that melody. Real enough that he raised his children on stories about the importance of reaching across differences. Real enough that his grandson is standing in an alien throne room, gambling that music can accomplish what diplomacy cannot." Aliana took the data crystal with trembling claws, careful not to crush it. "You came here to trade roots in quantum research." "I came here," John corrected, "because grandfather's journals showed me that you and humanity have more in common than either species wants to admit. We're all lonely in the dark, your radiance. We all create light in whatever way we can, some with empire and conquest, some with guitars and grief." She stood, the crystal clutched in her hand like a sacred relic. The court watched in stunned silence as their queen, architect of a dozen victorious campaigns, destroyer of the rebellion at Proxima, ruthless negotiator who had never shown weakness, wept crystalline tears that traced lines down her scaled cheeks. "Krell," she commanded, her voice regaining some of its authority, "prepare quarters for Lieutenant Kestrel in the diplomatic wing, and send word to the council. We will be opening formal negotiations with the human government." "Your Radiance," Krell protested, "they have nothing we need." "They have what we've lost," Aliana interrupted, and her tone brooked no argument. "The ability to see beyond mere power, the courage to be vulnerable, the wisdom to know that strength without compassion is just elaborate brutality." She looked at John, really looked at him, and saw in his face echoes of that night on Earth. Different generation, same spirit. And they have music that can make even dragons remember what it means to feel. John bowed, the gesture respectful without being subservient. Grandfather would be glad to know his song finally made it to the stars. "It made it to the stars 300 cycles ago," Aliana corrected gently. "It's just been waiting for the right moment to play again." As the court dispersed in confused whispers and John was escorted to his quarters, Aliana returned to her observation deck. She held the data crystal up to the light of Draconis Prime's 3 moons, wondering what memories and music it contained. Behind her, barely audible, she heard a courtier whisper. The human made her cry. They're more dangerous than we thought. Aliana smiled, the first genuine smile in centuries. Dangerous, yes, but not in the way the Empire feared. Humans were dangerous because they reminded you that beneath scales or skin, past differences in physiology and culture, consciousness found common ground in the strangest places. In music, in memory, in the courage to love across impossible distances and the audacity to believe that such love mattered. She would listen to Jonathan's recordings tonight. She would remember. And tomorrow, she would begin the work of building a bridge between species, one song at a time. Because if a solitary human playing a wooden guitar could make a dragon queen weep, imagine what they might accomplish together. The stars, Aliana thought, were about to become a lot more interesting. And somewhere in the quantum foam of spacetime, in whatever dimension consciousness retreated to after death, she imagined Jonathan Kestrel was playing his guitar and smiling, that peculiar human expression that showed teeth and meant joy. The melody echoed through her memory, perfect and imperfect, mathematical and emotional, a bridge across time and species. Love, it turned out, didn't end just because someone was gone, or because they were different species, or because empires and protocols said it was impossible. It just waited, patient as stars, for the right moment to play again. And